Welcome to Behind the Mic, a podcast from the Concrete Foundations Association featuring discussions with some of the leading professionals in today's concrete industry. This series features interviews recorded at the World of Concrete 2020 conference in Las Vegas. And in this episode, Scott Renfro of Foundation Builders in Greeley, Colorado, shares insights about his life and career, emphasizing the need for strategic planning and open communication when preparing for generational transitions in a family business. Let's jump right into what Scott has to say behind the mic.
So we're at the World of Concrete 2020. It's day 2 here in Las Vegas, and I have a chance to sit down and talk for a little bit this morning with Scott Renfro, Foundation Builders out of Greeley, Colorado, board member at the CFA, fantastic individual. Scott, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's good to sit down with individuals that come from different backgrounds, and you've got one of those backgrounds that's really compelling, I think, as I look at it from an executive director perspective. Your dad is very instrumental in the early years of the CFA. What do you remember as a kid growing up with the life of a foundation contractor around you?
It's, I guess, obviously in my blood. My dad started his concrete company, our concrete company, in 1972. And so I grew up, I can remember Saturdays jumping in his truck and driving around looking at jobs with him and getting out and climbing all over stuff and getting dirty and just enjoying it as a little kid, just to be around him and the jobs.
Yeah, fun, entertaining equipment, all kinds of things that engage the young mind as a boy growing up. Looking back, what age do you think might have been the first time where you became employed? I mean, that means different things to different people.
Actually, probably in middle school, in the old days, you used to water settle foundations. And so I would, during the summer, get the lawn chair and the hose and be the one that sit out there and babysit it while you were water settling and get paid for that. So that was nice. And then through high school, worked summers on the crews. And that was honestly a great way to learn the business, being the boss's kid. You got to do the things nobody else wanted to do that they wanted the boss's kid to make sure he knew how to do. And so you started at the bottom and worked your way up. So that was a great way to learn the business from the ground up, is working on all the crews through high school and college in the summers.
Was there ever a time that you can remember through that process, working up, getting into college, was there ever a time where you thought like you were being forced away, to look away from the industry? You really almost wanted to run away a little bit, or has it always just been attractive to you?
No, actually, even though I worked there summers, I never wanted to be in the business. And I went away to college. I played baseball in college, so chased that dream around. And the other dream that I had at the time was I wanted to be a judge or an arbitrator. And so I was looking to go to law school. And after college, I worked in a law firm in Los Angeles as a paralegal for a few years. And in 92, came back to Colorado to get ready to go to law school, and my dad had 20-some employees and did payroll by hand using the book to calculate the taxes. And I said, Dad, let me computerize your business. And I loved working side by side with him and never went back to college and have been there ever since.
Oh, what a fantastic story. So baseball player, and there's so much likeness in the concrete construction industry to team sports. How do you reflect back on your baseball career and what you remember from that team environment and what was attractive to you? How do you pass that on to your employees today?
Well, obviously, that's probably the biggest challenge you have in a concrete business, is bringing up leaders for your foreman and helping them interact with people and having that team atmosphere that can really be special when you're a good team and you actually do things and go places. And so if you can capture some of that through your company and have that type of morale, you have lifelong employees, and we have that in our company, thanks to my dad. We've got guys been with us actually 48 years. He's one employee. Second guy my dad ever hired is still with us. We've got 2 other guys at 35 years, and so a lot of long years of experience, and reflects well on my dad that he knew how to treat people right and to build a culture of family.
And amazing that you've been able to carry that on. So I got to imagine that those guys that have been around for 45 plus years, started with your dad, now working under you, probably kind of feel like an uncle, or maybe see themselves as somewhat of an uncle to you.
That or older brother.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Some of others, there was growing pains with that, of coming into the business, even though I worked summers, of still being the boss's kid. And to overcome that sort of mentality of, is he really here? Did he earn to be here? Does he know what he's doing? And my dad passed away 7 years ago, and so that was a big transition of time of what the heck am I going to do as the sole owner in turning this and keeping going? And so we still are doing strong and passed through that hump. And now I have twin boys that are 18 and 3 daughters that are older that maybe some of them will come back into the company. So we'll be looking at a third generation of transition in the next 20 years, probably, of possibly if they want to. If not, then we'll go different avenues. But
which is really not unusual, particularly in this industry, in the residential foundation industry. I just know so many companies that are definitely in second generation, starting to look at third generation, or already there. You know, your father passing away not all that long ago, really. I mean, 7 years is a blink of an eye. Do you feel like, as the second generation owner now, do you feel like he was prepared for that transition, or prepared you for that transition, the business, well enough?
Well, looking back, obviously there's always things you wish you would have asked, or other things you wish you would have known a little better. There's always questions daily, or wonder what my dad would have done in this situation. But thankfully, with some of the longevity of other people in our company, I can go to Tom and say, hey, what did my dad do in this type of situation years ago? What did you guys talk about on this? But then the other thing that's really been helpful and beneficial in that is being a member of the CFA and talking to other companies around the country that are second generation, and talking to those guys that are like me, saying, how did you do your transition? How did that work? What did you have to focus on and overcome? And then even talking to the first generation members and saying, you have a son, what are you doing, or how is that working for you? And so since the association has such great members that do have some of that tradition of passing through families, that's been invaluable to me as a member.
So I think one of the interesting questions to ask you is to reflect on your situation, your location there in Greeley, Colorado. How many companies around you do you think you engage with in any kind of form of networking?
You're talking concrete companies?
Yeah, concrete contractors like yours.
Well, we know quite a few of them in our area, and we've got a couple that we're close with that we don't feel threatened that if their crane truck goes down, we'll go move their panels for them, or they can borrow our crane truck, and we've borrowed theirs when ours has been in the shop or had an issue for long term. And so we've got some relationships like that, which is great. That's a hard thing with competitors, and you try to stay away from their employees and not do any poaching, and hopefully they will do the same. And so that keeps you, I think, at bay and at a standoff a little more. And that's, to me, another benefit of the CFA is when you have questions on something, I can talk to somebody in Indiana or Pennsylvania or Kansas City and Salt Lake and get a real honest answer and input that you can't go to the guy pouring the foundation across the street from you on sometimes. So, but we have good relationships, I think, with people. We as a company been around since '72, long time, and so we try to set the standard and do what's right and try to introduce new product and be the benchmark of how to do a foundation and how to give the perfect one to the customer. And we're not afraid to share that and make everybody better, because in the end, you don't want any bad apples in the industry, because that's what makes the press, and you want everyone to be successful.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. One bad report, one problem really does turn the whole area sour. And so you have to work together and create that kind of professional camaraderie, but I also get that there's a certain point that you just don't go beyond.
Right.
You're not comfortable. You're not comfortable kind of sharing your whole approach to pricing and estimating and different things. I know enough about you to know that concrete is not your only thing that you're passionate about, and certainly your background in law brought you into service with the state as a senator.
Yeah, that's right. I served 8 years in the Colorado Senate. It was an incredible opportunity and experience, quite an honor. A lot of brain damage at times. Was term limited out in 2014, and it was pretty partisan at the time. Very difficult, but nothing like what we see today. So from still being in touch with colleagues, it's a demoralizing, very, very tough thing in our country right now that I don't know how we're going to get past. You look at things that go on, it's crazy. But yeah, it was an incredible experience. I never would have had the opportunity, except when you talk the transition from generation to generation. We were at a point where my dad wanted to step away a little more from the company, and so I was basically doing all our estimating. And we brought a guy in from the field that had been with us 30 years and couldn't really physically do anything outside the office. And so we transitioned him to, I spent a year teaching him to be our estimator and to take over that side of the business, and to free me up to help my dad to take over his roles. And that's when they asked me to run. And So I basically freed myself up to leave the business, and my dad stayed in, and because I couldn't have done both without that opportunity. My dad was open enough to say, you need to do that. And so it was quite a blessing and tough going away for those years and being involved in the company just 6 a.m. before I head to the Capitol, or on Saturdays, or phone calls during the week if there's something going on. But the experience and opportunity to serve was special.
Yeah, what a significant decision, professional decision. I know how hard it is just to think about answering the call to jury duty and giving up a week. And here you gave up eight years.
Yeah, it was quite a commitment, and I think people in our company respected it and were very supportive. It brought people into new roles that I think helped us grow as a company, and helped even the transition when I came back and my father passed away to move us to the next level of management and in the direction we're going today, which I'm excited for us. The next few years looks pretty strong in the construction, and we're doing what we can to provide the best product in our area.
So one of the things I know about this industry is it's really easy for concrete contractors to get those blinders on, and really you see what's right in front of you. You know what you work with in your hands. And so when you step out of yourself, such as you did to become part of the state Senate in Colorado, there can be that perspective of, no, I would never do that. I don't know enough to do that. So I'm curious if you ever found anything in your 8 years that your training and your position as a concrete contractor benefited you in bringing to the Senate and your ability to deal with people that way.
Oh, absolutely. I'd say every day. We need more people to run for office at every level that have business experience. Because, to be honest, a majority of people at the capitals, you have a lot of attorneys, you have a lot of retired teachers, you have a lot of retired government employees that kind of look at it as, I don't know, a second career or something. That you don't have enough people that own a business or in management in a business that go and serve and then go back to the business the way our founders really designed our country and wanted it to be. Instead, you have people that go and they're just part of the system, and their lack of common sense on business issues is mind-blowing. An example I can give you, frustration that got me involved was just the over-regulation and the lack of common sense on a lot of things. And one day we had a fee that they were wanting to implement on something, and you had a business owner there talking about how this was going to cost him, I don't know, X amount of dollars, and it was potentially going to have to downsize these number of people because of this fee. And had a fellow senator ask, what's your gross revenue? And he said, oh, we're a $12 million gross revenue company. She said, well, you make enough money then to afford this fee. I had no idea, bottom line talking. She was, well, if you have that much money coming in, you can afford this.
Right.
And it just, you sit down and try to explain to them of a balance sheet and a P&L or payroll, and trying to realize what this does to your payroll if this were to happen, and you just blank stares. So I would encourage people to get involved. Yeah, that level, not everybody can go to the state capitol, but let me tell you, we need people to start at city councils and town boards. And where I started, honestly, was I was on a couple advisory boards to the city where I'm at, and then also in the local home builders, and we have our own Weld County Builders in our area. That's a different organization from national home builders. And so I got involved in different things at the city level that way, and just couldn't believe the direction and the cost that everybody wanted to keep putting on the burden on us. And that's one thing I'm thankful about the CFA also, is the work you do at the ACI on codes and the things, and the way we have members get involved to make sure that we're trying to control some of the things that engineers and architects and government officials want to put into the code. And what I'm talking is preaching to the choir, because you've seen that lack of common sense, I think, at times of, yeah, that might be a good idea, but you don't realize how big of an issue, the can of worms you're opening with trying to propose something sometimes.
Absolutely. You've got to stay grounded in reality. And that background that you brought to the Senate, I'm sure, had immeasurable results for you. So now as you transition back into the industry as foundation contractor, and your dad passes and you come back, and now you're the president of the company and trying to get this thing running in your own direction, really, in many respects. Curious if you brought anything from the Senate into who you are today as a business owner.
Yeah, probably some bad habits and hopefully some good habits, because there you get pulled in so many directions that you seem to multitask some things. And so I have to remind myself to slow back down and concentrate on one thing and not just make a decision and move on, because sometimes you got just so much information at the Senate that you don't have time to absorb or to really sit down and have an honest conversation. And so sometimes I catch myself having a meeting with somebody and all of a sudden you start thinking about your email and so you got to stay focused. But obviously dealing with people is a skill that you have to have in the Senate, and working across the aisle, trying to work things. I was in the minority party my whole 8 years. And so for me to propose a bill to do something, got killed most of the time and didn't pass. So you had to find other ways to get things done behind the scenes, working with different departments, with directors, or with other people across the aisle behind the scenes to do that. And so I think being able to have that perspective of trying to put yourself in other people's shoes a lot of times to see why do they want you to do this. I think that's some of the stuff I brought back into the company a little more, to try to be more receptive of our builders we work for. Of sometimes you should throw your head up at the things they ask you to do and say, okay, well, why are they really wanting that? And then see if there's a better way to do it, or a cheaper way that'll give them better quality.
Yeah, so in today's business, now fully engaged in the company, and you've got these transitions under the way, what's your biggest challenge there right now?
Well, probably like every other company out there is labor.
Yeah.
15, 20 years ago, when things really started ramping up and growing, hiring 10 guys or 15 guys or 5 guys to add another crew and to do something was, the question wasn't would you find them, it was when did you want them to start and how are you going to have the equipment for them. Today it's a different animal of trying to get prospective employees to come through the door and then retain the ones that you have. And so obviously everybody has that employee challenge. And so I'd say that's one of the biggest challenges we have right now. We've been blessed with obviously our performance in the past to provide a good quality product, and that's given us a reputation that I think helps us get in the door in a lot of jobs. And so we have to uphold that. And so that would be the other challenge, is to continue and to keep moving forward with new innovation and quality products. And that's one of the great things of the world of concrete, is finding those products. Every year we bring people and we find one new thing we try at least to implement even if it's this year I bought some sort of sledgehammer that could be a lighter ergonomic method of putting stakes in the ground that won't destroy the stake also. And we'll see if it works. Maybe it's a gimmick, and you never know. But sometimes you find a gem and things that really help guys and do their job better, safer, and easier. And so that.
Yeah, and certainly there's a din around us as we do this podcast, and so our listeners are taking in a little bit of the environment of World of Concrete as we sit here and chat. And technology is at the core of this show. I've heard a lot of contractors respond in the last several years to me about World of Concrete being a bucket list destination for them. They really would love the opportunity to come here, but it's a challenge to get out of your business. Not only from the background that you've had, but your dad kind of instilled some of this leadership in you, and now you find yourself engaged in the association. You're a board member for CFA. How important is it for you to get out of your business enough to be in this kind of an environment?
I think it's invaluable to step back and to meet different colleagues from around the country, hear their struggles, help them on products, or learn from them on what they're looking at, see new product. My dad started a tradition of really bringing a lot of people from our company, and so every year we try to bring 1 or 2 supervisors or foremen and let them experience and go, and because their eyes looking at a product is a lot different than the owner's eyes. And so that's been a great benefit, I think, that they see and like when it's their turn to get to come, and they find things that we've put in the business that's incredible. But the show overall, it's been a long time since I've personally attended seminars. When I was young and just starting into the business, my dad really said, hey, you're going to go to a seminar a year. And I've been coming probably 25 years myself now. And actually, I'm an old guy here, it seems like a little bit, which is crazy to think. But so and there's still good seminars that I need to get back engaged in and probably go to. But it's something that every company ought to do. And the time that you can get and spend, you're going to learn more and take more away than you realize.
Yeah, and so you've got employees that recognize the value of you saying to them, job well done, but also not just job well done, but really come along and participate. I think that's a strong message to your leaders when you're able to not just bring them and turn them loose on Las Vegas because it's Las Vegas, but really engage them in the future of your company and seeing the company potential through their eyes. How do you find it received at home? You've spent a lot of time here. You come here for a week or the better part of a week, and now how your employees accept that value as well, that you're going to bring back some rich environment for them?
Yeah, I think so. One thing we do in our company is around the first of the year, since this is always into January, into February, we make our wish list for the year, goals or whatever, and you look a product of, is there something we need to look at? And the show a lot of times has great show specials on things, so you can get into things cheaper. They've got the outdoor exhibits where you can try things. Right. It is amazing. And so our guys do like that aspect of being able to be involved of that. And then I try to take home a lot of pamphlets on different things, and we'll meet with our foremans and say, hey, here's a lot of the stuff that caught my eye at the show. What do you guys think of these things? And then when we bring other foremen or our supervisors, they do the same, and we'll put that all out, and everybody will look at them and then get some input from them and do purchases that way to try new things. So it kind of includes all of our management team on a lot of level.
Is there any element from your dad's impact on you, that lifelong learner, kind of the curiosity? Da Vinci called it curiosito. Is there any of that in that, or is that something that you think you've brought to the business, expanding it?
Oh, I'd say much of it is my dad. Looking back, I think we were the first company in Colorado to buy a Bobcat, and everybody looked at us and said, what the heck are you going to do with that? And my dad told them, we're going to make money. And you don't see it. Everybody used to have a John Deere backhoe, and I think, has always tried to, when he was around, tried to have that innovative look forward. I think we were one of the first companies to buy a crane truck in Colorado to haul our panels around. We were early in with aluminum panels, going away from the wood. And so we've always had that mentality of a company of trying to see what is the best new innovation and be on top of it. And then from a safety perspective, what's best for our guys, and bringing that to the table too. So I think I know there's a lot of things I've done and wanted to bring that got shot down in years past. And over time, you look back and you've done those. Example, I could say it'd be a total station. We use those in our business. And when they first came out, that's the future. Let's do it. And it took quite a few years to get everybody else on board. And now it's, gosh, why didn't we ever not do that? Right. So you have that sometimes happen too.
Yeah. So now as we, realizing that you really are sitting here firmly looking at a third generation for Foundation Builders, how does your perspective, and I'm going to assume that a lot of our listeners are going to be in two categories. They're going to be owners like you that are probably having some difficulty engaging the next generation. And we've heard a lot about that the next generation is a challenging workforce to engage, not just from interest, but also then from participation. You've got sons in the business, and you are interestingly forced into that transition now, not only to engage your sons and think about generational change at the same time. How is that benefiting you as you look ahead in what you're going to transition to that next generation?
Well, obviously, I think of my experience with my dad and things I wish I would have known or asked. So I've tried to be pretty vocal to make sure my sons know that, and know that there's no pressure. I want you to live your life. If you don't come in the business, that's great. We want to set you up in a skill and a profession that you love, because I want them to do what they love, not feel pressured to come into the business. I think that was unique with me, of not wanting to be in it. And then my path to come back into it was, for me, pretty neat, because if I wouldn't have went out, I would have probably had a lot of what if, why didn't I go do that, and since I did go do a little of it and then come back, I think it solidified me more of the benefit and just the joy of interacting with our employees and our customers and that. So there's a lot of challenges to bring up kids and to see how you do it. For me, I would say the biggest thing is if you have more than one child, and some of them definitely aren't coming in, you need to be open and honest with all of them of what your expectations and wishes are, and even estate planning, so that you don't have an issue once you're gone that is going to leave them to where they're not having relationships together, because that's one area we failed, I think, a little bit. My sister and I don't have a great relationship through her. She was never involved in the business, and I gave my youth to the business. And so there's been some struggles there after my dad's passing, and I wish we would have had more openness before on what the future was going to be like. But that's always a tough question, you know?
Yeah,
talking about your death and what's going to be that progression.
Right. So a lot of it really to our listeners is thinking forward. You got to be thinking out 10 years, 15 years. And again, I think it's so easy when you own a job or own this business that you're in, no matter the size of your business, and particularly the smaller, I think, the size of the business, it's so easy to just see in front of you and worry about the next job or the next month, the next payroll, the next year. But you do really have to do some strategic visioning and planning to know what those risks are going to be for you.
Right, and to make sure that you help them have the most opportunity to be as successful as they can. Right. We have another competitor in our area that several years ago, the owner, he died unexpectedly. And so it was left to the wife. And it was quite a transition for them. And that was, a lot of companies came alongside them to say, hey, whatever you need, let us know, and to help you through this time before you decide if you're going to sell everything, or are you going to continue, or are you going to hire someone to run it? How would that go? And so everybody with a business you need to look at that, and you have a lot of employees that rely on you. And if something were to happen to me on the way home from the show, what would 50 guys tomorrow do? And you want to help look out for their lives and their family and their quality of life, and make sure that they're secure in their futures.
So one last question for you. If you had a chance, and hopefully your sons will be listening to this at some point, but really knowing that you're not just talking to your sons, but peers of your sons in this next generation, what's the one thing that you would want to pass on to them, the most important words of wisdom that you'd want to say to them today?
I think that they need to find what it is that they are passionate about and spend some time in that. And then through that, if they can increase their education through school or on the job to get to the point of being able to take it over, they need to invest the time, and you got to be there. You can't, there's a higher expectation, which puts pressure on you. Being the boss's kid for so many years, there's still people come in the door and say, oh, I remember Scott, I remember you when you were 7 years old and crawling on the desk type of deal. And there's a lot of people that remember my sons that way with my dad, with grandpa. And so that's a challenge, is to be committed enough and learn. I think you have to learn it to the next level over others so that they understand that you do know what you're doing, and then you got to commit to it.
And so I'm guessing you would answer the question that you found your passion in this industry.
I have, yeah. The smell of concrete and oil, and it's amazing, the technology that's come along, and just being able to, what we say is we're building people's dreams, and we're putting the foundation to their dream, and that's a special thing to do that right. We want them to always build on the rock and then help us to build a foundation that's solid.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for spending a little bit of time with me. And I know you've got a busy schedule here trying to get around and absorb this technology and take it home. And appreciate you and your words of wisdom. For those of you out there, just find your passion. Scott Renfro, Foundation Builders, Greeley, Colorado. That'll conclude our podcast for this episode. I want to continue to encourage you to follow us and share the message of these podcasts around trying to bring you real life examples from these contractors and let you know that you're not alone. It's all about trying to find yourself off of that island and find yourself in a sea of valuable thought leaders in this industry. So Scott, thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck to you.
Yeah. Have a great show.
Behind the Mic is brought to you by the Concrete Foundations Association. You can learn more about us and about becoming one of our #CFA Concrete Pros by visiting our website, cfaconcretepros.org. If you're a concrete professional interested in being part of a future podcast, reach out to us by email to info@cfaconcretepros.org to start a conversation. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Behind the Mic.